two worlds, one system, and keeping your sanity. So today we're kind of looking at slightly large organizations. We got another big one here. I want to introduce Mahir. Welcome, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So one of the first things that we ever need to do when BPP goes and does a talk is we need to explain who BPP are. Most people don't know BPP, but BPP provides professional education. So this is really anything to do with education within your career. They provide apprenticeships, degrees, professional qualifications, as well as skills training to fit any part of that range. Also, just to kind of give a bit of context as to why we're doing this talk, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the history of BPP. It started in 1976 by Brierley, Price and Pryor, hence BPP, and it was purely a tutorial college for accountancy exams. Pretty dry. Fast forward 15 years, and they were quite successful. Oh, closer. All right. After 15 years, they were proving quite successful in their accountancy exams. They went and launched a legal training law school in 1992. And then fast forward another 15 years, and they become the very first for-profit company to receive degree awarding powers. After that, there's a spate of that degree awarding powers becoming more and more elevated, so that by 2020, they are granted indefinite degree awarding powers. It's at this point where things begin to move a lot faster for the business. So the business begins to acquire other education companies, starting off with SDO, which was a specialist, it still is, not was, a specialist apprenticeship training provider in IT. They also acquire Firebrand, which is specialist IT and digital training, as well as acquiring Digital Marketing Institute. That's digital marketing training. In 2004, they also acquired Buttercups. This expands the subject areas into pharmacy and primary care. But also in 2024, the business acquires Accender and Arbutus College, which are based in Canada, as well as CIC, which is in Australia. It keeps going. In 2005, only last year, the business acquires Sprott-Shaw. This is a long-lasting education company from British Columbia, and they're focused on healthcare, business, and early childhood education. Also last year, the business bought AIB, which is Australian Institute of Business, and they're the largest provider of MBAs in Australia. So there's a huge amount of growth in the space of just 5 years for the business. So only a couple of weeks ago, the business launched Lyceum. This is the parent company which helps to umbrella all of these brands together, but they're all still pretty disparate. In 2026, there's still more coming. There's no slowing down from what we've heard of the business in terms of acquiring more of these brands. But I need to take you back a little bit, back 2.5 years, and that's when I joined BPP. I'm not that special, but it's just a pivotal moment. This was the moment when BPP decided that they need to have a design system. I know, 2003, and they didn't have a design system. And one of the things that I had noticed is that we were developing a design system just for a single brand, just for BPP, but they've already bought SDO, they bought Firebrand, bought Buttercups, and I kept on questioning, like, was this ever really going to work for just one brand? Like, should we be thinking about, does it need theming? Does it need to work across multiple brands? And I kept on asking my directors, are you sure? Are you really sure? Because I kept on thinking, we probably want to set up all of that theming now. But directors are right sometimes. They were saying, no, just focus just on BPP. What we need to do is prove that we can make BPP more successful with a design system. So I stayed focused. Fast forward to early 2025, and the business, which had been going through a digital transformation, we were just getting to the point where, this is so oversimplified, but things like our CMS, PIM, data, e-com, and a hell of a lot more were getting into a much cleaner state. We had kind of re-platformed a lot of these systems, and we were beginning to see that we could actually begin to translate this into those other brands that we've got or duplicate these systems. So the initial brands that we were looking at were some of these that you can see on the slide. And we needed to think about how we're going to get Scholar, our design system. I should have said that at the beginning. How was Scholar going to work with translating these brands to use our design system on our new platforms? So, and they all look quite different. They were using their graphic elements in so many different ways. So we had quite a bit of work to do. So working with brand and marketing teams, the product designers, as well as people who are focused on that group level understanding of these brands. Keep in mind that at this point, we didn't have a parent brand. So we were having to really think about what's that interplay between these brands really going to translate to. So whenever we think about theming, there is a real scale that we really need to think about. Initially, we had loads of talks at the beginning, but I'm just going to make this seem really linear. Initially, we were thinking about what if we had no theming in the design system? What if our design system was just used with no other changes across all of these other brands? But pretty quickly, after doing some designs, we kind of figured out it was just going to be too homogeneous. It wasn't going to bring any of that flavor that the brands needed. Go to the other end. Oh, I did take out some text. Doesn't matter. Go to the other end of the scale. And this is kind of where I genuinely have dreams about theming, like having the theming run through every token and component so that the brand has full flavor running through it. But no, it's too much. It's too expensive. And thinking about the size of the business, the growth that they had was really, really quick. They weren't that established to really think that actually that's what we need to go after. So in the end, it was about what's just enough to give enough flexibility for these brands to have ownable character, just enough to help bring alignment to what was at the time 9 brands, but now 11, and just enough flexibility so that multiple teams and multiple disciplines can understand how the brand language really translates. So working with the brand team, they were designing up what the parent brand would look like at the time. So they were trying to figure out, well, actually, the parent brand, should that just trickle down through all of the brands that we've got? And we started off by looking at typography, color, and how we use that. And the brand team were really keen that we use exactly the same colors, run it through all of the brands, and we treat color on things like interactive elements, as well as other brand positions. So these are the colors. And so we've got a gradient, we've got red, orange, yellow, and these colors could not change between light and dark mode. And I was just thinking, you're gonna hate it, because something that we all know this, but like having worked with loads of designers and marketers, we all like variety. We want flexibility. And this was easily, I could see, just going to be too locked down. However, we are studious designers and we did our due diligence and we explored what was it going to really look like if we took those colors, those graphic elements, and translated it into some of our components that had high interactivity levels. Things like this, like our global nav, how's that going to really translate? You can see we've got lots of like ticks and crosses all over this kind of thing. We also looked at buttons, and then we were looking at primary buttons, and we were just getting accessibility errors galore. It was so difficult to try and work with such a locked down palette. But that's nobody's fault. We were just trying to kind of figure out what was really going to translate. We decided to go back a little bit, rethink things with the brand team, and we were thinking about what do we already have? Tokens, they come in. So we've got these lovely groups of tokens that we already had in Scholar. And what's that one at the bottom? We got brand tokens. But these brand tokens that we had set up originally for BPP were used in a relatively arbitrary way. We've got, loads of colors, but they do flex between light and dark mode, but they had no kind of purpose as to how they were being used. But this felt like it was the moment where we could apply variables to these brand tokens, and that can give the flavor for each of the brands. Working back with the brand team, I've gone and stolen some of their slides. We can now see that although the typography in the grid remains the same for all of the logos, running color independent to each brand really helps to bring that flavor and flexibility that's needed. Translate this into some of our components, and I've taken a what do we call it, testimonial card here. And you can see that with the brand token of brand 10 emphasis for Accender, the one in the middle is using our cobalt color. If we wanted it to be for buttercups, it would take the green 110 color. And if it's for STO, it's yellow 110. So this really unlocked for us the flexibility that we were looking for that would translate going from one brand up to 11. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. It didn't work straight out the box. There was more unpicking we needed to do. So here's a quick screenshot of Accender using their cobalt color as a background element. Seemed to work really nicely, but no, the buttons aren't accessible on that. Drat, what do we need to do? And we found that with brand colors, on our color ramps, they don't always come from the same part of the color ramp. They are not always the same lightness stop. Nightmare. But I can't tell the brand team to change those colors. So what we needed to do was figure out how do we treat our interactive elements that will ensure that we meet accessibility standards. So we went to our buttons and our links, and we thought about having a high contrast monochrome mode. That was the thing which really helped to unlock those color pairings that allowed a brand to have enough flavor and character, but still meet accessibility needs that we were looking for. Lo and behold, it's working. Woohoo. So it was really down to the design system and the fact that we'd already established some tokens that allowed us to have that right context of conversation, the right conversation about context with the brand team. They were able to understand that we've already got a system in place that really allows us to scale so quickly for the business. This wasn't a case of going from one brand to having two themes in a design system. We're going from 1 to 11. We really need to think about the systemized aspect of this. So I'll pass over now to Mars, who's going to explain how all of this translated from design into dev.
Oh, thank you very much. Wave at the back if you can hear me. Is that good enough? Cheers, thank you. So I'll be looking at how we can feed our design system, the brand visual language, to the developers. There's a key part to this. As more brands join the design system, the communication model changes. It's ever evolving. But why is context important to the developers? Raise your hands if you've seen the USA, The Office. A few hands, amazing. So there's an episode where Michael, he has his GPS on and he's trying to get to his destination. However, there is a river in the road that he is driving to. Without looking at the river and trusting his GPS fully, he drives straight into the river. But the story in this is that the context would have provided enough information to stop, right? But he continued driving, trusting the system fully. If we take this context into our world, into the user interface and how we translate those user interfaces to development, we find that sometimes the incorrect use of tokens, which can then mean that when it's translated to the developers, we can have misinterpretation of that design context. Additionally, Figma Make has become very popular recently. And without the right design context applied to those components, you can get AI hallucination as well with those Figma Make components. Also, if your tokens are not applying the wrong values, that also means when it's being translated to the developers, they may not also use the right tokens as well. When we look at the development mode as well, when there are misinterpretations of design context, that means the developers end up building the wrong thing, meaning QA engineers have to go in and find out what's wrong with the components and the behavior with those components as well. This increases maintenance time for getting things shipped. And even when they are shipped to production, we find that the misalignment in the layouts can cause your products to look unprofessional. And that doubts the overall quality of your products as well. So how can we look at the design intent that gets lost before we reach production and ensure that accuracy efficiency, and autonomy comes into play in your design system. In addition to this, as a multi-brand design system expands, how can the visual context be sped up towards, sorry, was it too quiet? Okay, perfect. Is that better? Sweet. So in a multi-brand design system, the visual context is evolving faster than our ability to communicate it. The real challenge isn't tools, it's the translation from design context to development. I looked at our existing systems and found common ground between design and development. For example, our variables library uses the most common visual language that we have within our design system. And in contrast, in development, we have the tokens repo, which contains the visual language that we provide from design. Additionally, we use our styles library to apply those tokens to the components. And what we have in common between design and development is a component library, one that lives in GitHub, GitLab, and Figma for design. Also, that was grossly simplified as well. Cool. So I was looking at a communication model blueprint that we could use. It's still in process. It's not perfect, but I was looking at how we could use a JSON handler to sync between the variable library and the token repo. This way, we can ensure that any changes that occur in design get reflected in development, and any changes in development get reflected into design as well. In addition to that, we were looking at Figma's Code Connect, allowing us to audit our components in design and in development to ensure that they are in sync from a documentation perspective, and from when Figma take those designs and understand if any of those components exist in GitHub. We also looked at using MCP servers as well, Model Context Protocol, so that any information that we're feeding from design and from development can be used within the MCP server to determine what the outcome should be. For example, if that's generating a new component or if that's auditing an existing component. I'd actually like to demonstrate an example of how I used the MCP server to generate a simple button. It's worth bearing in mind, it's not actually connected to a code repo because we're still in the process of doing it. Again, it won't be perfect, so if I can just show you the description of the video. So it's taking a link that we've taken from Figma, applying the right context to it. So I'm asking it to implement the button and ensuring that it meets the visual standards required. And as I then send it over, it will then gather the design context in Figma. It will look at the variables applied. It will look at min and max width, as well as any documentation that I have meta tagged into the component as well. By doing so, we can ensure that multi-brand tokens and component-based tasks can be implemented quicker. For example, if we are applying new tokens, creating new tokens in the multi-brand design system, we can then ask the MCP server to retrieve the information from the token base and plug it into the LLM client. In addition to this, we can audit existing components between design and development, seeing if they are applying the right variables in both areas, variables and tokens. And by doing so, we can save time and financial resource on design system related tasks. In addition to this, we're exploring how we can automate some of the documentation as well within the design system, and also seeing how efficient rapid prototypes in Figma Make can be produced as well. So here you can see it's produced the button, but if you work on a design system long enough, you'll recognize the really small details and differences between a component in design and development. So now, as you can see in the video, I'm asking for it to just double check between design and development to ensure that it's the same. If we get the results any minute now, it will now show you that it's made a few changes based on the comparison it's made between design and development. I want to leave a few takeaways. Tools like AI or MCP server don't replace collaboration. They encode it. They ensure that whatever is being produced in design has the right context and allows us to take claim responsibility for what we are producing in both design and development. I want to leave a few takeaways as well in terms of design files. We need to stop shipping design files. Stop sending design links to your developers and expecting them to know what to do within the Figma space. we should start shipping decision systems that make content explicit, because without context, your systems can still drive your products straight into a river. Thank you.